Hello, my amazing Algebra Half students. This is Mrs. A, and I love math. And today I'm here with you on lesson 83 of your Saxon Blue Book. And we're talking about algebraic addition using mental parentheses. Okay, so when we're talking about algebraic addition, we are going to be learning how to do addition with signed numbers. Okay, so let's start with a very easy problem. This is not an addition problem, is it? It's a subtraction problem. So we have 8 minus 5 is a subtraction problem, but we can write it as an addition problem. We can attach the minus sign to the subtrahend, the number that's being subtracted. And when we do that, we can change to addition. So 8 minus 5 is the same as 8 plus a negative 5. And now that we know that to add opposite signs, we really subtract in our brain and find the difference, we can do signed number addition. That is really the same thing as subtraction. Now, this process helps us to be able to do some very, very complicated ones that you will see a little bit later on in the sections. But we're not doing this one today. This is just an example of what's going to come. We need a rule that's going to turn subtraction into addition so that we know how to handle these more difficult problems. Okay, so sorry about that. Let's talk about some rules. So here we have a rule that's in your book. It says to subtract algebraically, we change the sign of the subtrahend and add. And that's very true. We just saw it on the other board, right? We change the sign of the second number. The number we are subtracting is called the subtrahend. We change its sign and then we add. You can also think of it as attaching the minus sign to the number behind it. Okay? I like this way of saying it. Subtraction is addition of the opposite. Subtraction is addition of the opposite. So here is the same example. All right, so we could take 8 minus 5, which is subtraction. We can then write it still as subtraction, but we have separated the 5 and put it into parentheses. So basically this was minus a 5, so minus a 5. Okay, we just added the parentheses in. And then subtraction is addition of the opposite. Excuse me. This is why I haven't made videos in a while. Mrs. A had the flu, and I am still coughing. I'm over the flu, but I'm not over the cough. So I kind of had to stop doing videos for a while because I didn't want to hack all the way through the videos. I think I can do it with just a few coughs here and there, I hope. All right, so we turned subtraction into addition of the opposite. We can also think of it as taking the minus sign, attaching it to the subtrahend, and then adding. All right, so now we're going to look at more complicated problems. Now, when your book does this problem, they turn every single one of these into a mental parenthesis. But to me, that's an awful lot of work, because to me, plus 2 and plus parenthesis positive 2 is not really an improvement. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm only going to add parentheses for the negatives. So I'm going to show you where your mental parentheses will go. We'll take negative 4 And then I'm just going to add plus 2. It's not negative in any way, so I'm just going to leave it outside the parenthesis. And that will kind of help us see that it's positive instead of having parentheses sprinkled everywhere. And then this one is plus a negative 5 and plus a negative 7. I should have started over a little farther to the left. I ran out of room. So I just take each minus sign and turn it into a parenthesis. Okay, so now I am adding all the way across. But I know that when I add two opposite signs together, I really subtract. So negative 4 and positive 2 is a 2 with a negative sign on it. So this becomes a negative 2. Now, we can do addition in any order we want to. We could take the negative 2 and the negative 5, or what might seem a little faster is take these two numbers and add them together. And then we will at last add the two that are remaining together. So negative 5 plus a negative 7, those are like signs, aren't they? They're both negative. So negative 5 plus a negative 7 would be a negative 12. And now we're adding these two numbers. We added those two to get this one, these two to get this one, and now we only have two things left to add together, and they are both negative. So negative 2 plus negative 12 would be a negative 14. And that is a very fast way to get your problem. So what your book is saying that you can do is it's saying you don't have to put these parentheses here. You might want to practice with the parentheses before you go to the mental parentheses and do it in your head. I would suggest that you do a little bit of practicing actually putting in the parentheses. But notice I only put a parenthesis on the negative ones. Another very fast way to do this that does not require any writing is, if you want to, you can underline every negative and add all the negatives together first. And then add that result to the lonely little positive number. Let's see if we get the same thing. Negative 4 and negative 5 is a negative 9. Negative 9 and a negative 7 is going to be a negative 16. And then we have a negative 16 add to opposite signs. So we're going to really subtract. 16 minus 2 is 14, but the 16 was negative, so the negative gets the sign, and we're going to have negative 14 again. That was fast, wasn't it? Okay, so now we're going to do another practice, and I'm going to do them both ways for you. Okay, so here we have a negative, and a negative, and here is a positive. So if we were going to put in the parentheses, I would put in a parenthesis here, and a plus, and a parenthesis here, and a plus, and I wouldn't bother with a parenthesis there, and a plus, and a negative 4. That way all of my negative signs, my signed numbers, wind up in the parenthesis. So now I'm just going to do these two together. Negative and a negative is a negative. They're the same sign, so I add them. I get a negative 5. This one over here, these two, opposite signs, a 6 and a negative 4. I subtract them. I get 2, but it's a positive 2 because the positive number is larger, absolute value. So we're going to get a positive 2. And now, lastly, I will add those two together. And a negative 5 and a positive 2 is a negative 3. Let's try the other method where we don't put any parentheses at all. Okay? Let's underline negative 3, negative 2, negative 4. Underline all the negatives. And add add them together. So -3 and -2 is -5. -5 and -4 is -9. -9 and a +6. Opposite sign. So now I subtract them. 9 minus 6 is 3, but the -9 is the winner on the sign, isn't it? -3 again. That's pretty easy, isn't it? Okay, so now we're going to come back with your practice problems. Okay, now before we do this, we want to remember our little saying here. Subtraction is addition of the opposite. So we want to keep that in mind. All right, so we have a little bit longer problem here. We have two problems, and I think, hopefully, I didn't make a mistake by writing them on the same board. We'll see. We're going to use first the 2 by 2 method here. We're just going to do them 2 at a time and then finish up, okay? So -4 and +2. Remember, we're going to think addition all the way through. So we're going to go ahead and put all of our negatives in parentheses. So we have a -4. We have a -3, so we'll put a little plus in front. We have a -7, so we'll put a little plus in front. So we're changing everything to addition. We have a -8, so we'll put a little plus in front. And then we have a +1. Okay, so we have attached the minus sign to each one of the negative numbers, and we are now adding everything together. So we are adding a 2 and a -4 together. And opposite sign, subtract. 4 minus 2 is 2, but the 4 is negative, and he's bigger in absolute value, so we get a -2. Okay, so then we come over here to this pair, and we have a -3 plus a -7. And since we're adding same signs, we're going to add absolute values and get 10, and then the sign, we take the common sign. Same sign, add, take the common sign. So we're going to get a -10. And then we're going to go to the last pair, and we're adding a negative and a positive together. So opposite sign, subtract, take the sign of the greater. 8 minus 1 is 7, and take the sign of the 8, which is negative, so -7. So now we have reduced our 6 things, which we had to add together, to 3 things, which we're going to add together. And notice, negative, negative, negative. All 3 are same signs. So we're going to add them together and take the common sign, which is going to be negative. So -2, -10, -12, -12, and a -7, -19. Okay, now that's actually putting the parentheses in there. You can do that mentally by leaving the parentheses off. Now, let's do the same thing. But now we're going to do it using the second method I showed you, which was underline all the negatives and then do all the negatives first and then add them to the positives. So here we have a negative and a negative and a negative and a negative. So we're going to add all those together and get a negative result. So -4 and -3 is -7. -7 and -7 is -14. -14 and -8 is -22. So we have a -22 for all of our negatives. And then we're going to add together all of our positives. We have a +2 and a +1. 2 plus 1 is 3. So we have a -22 plus a 3, opposite signs. We're going to subtract. 22 minus 3 is 19. 19 is going to take the negative number because the negative numbers won the tug-of-war. So -19 is the answer. Wasn't that easy? Okay, so now we're going to do this one both ways. Okay, we're going to take each one of our negatives and put parentheses with a little plus sign in between. Parenthesis, a little plus sign in between. Parenthesis, a little plus sign in between. +8. Okay, so notice we have negative, 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 negative. The first four are negative. So let's go ahead and do it by pairs first. And then we have a lonely one. Negative 7 and negative 3, same sign, add. Take the common sign, that's a negative 10. Negative 2 and a negative 4, same sign, add. Take the common sign, that's a negative 6. And then we have a positive 8. So negative 10 and negative 6 is a negative 16 plus the 8, opposite sign, subtract. Take the sign of the greater. So we get negative 16 plus 8 is negative 8. Okay, now this one's not going to be much different doing the all one sign rule, right? So we're going to do all the negatives first, and we get the negative 16, and then we add the 8. That one's not going to be any different either way we do it. And that is the end of lesson 83 about algebraic addition and subtraction. And this is Mrs. A, and may God bless your day.